Hello, welcome to another Snyk Live session. I'm your host, Brian Clark. I'm a developer advocate here at Snyk, and happy to have you here joining us for this particular live stream, which is about fetching flags, capture the flags and building those out and creating that type of event and the technology behind it. And to help us learn more about that, because I have not done that before. I've participated a little bit here and there in capture the flags, and they're a lot of fun. But I'd love to learn more about the workings behind it and how to set them up and how to create a successful event like the one we recently had back in November, earlier November actually. It's still November now. I don't know what I was thinking, but November 9th is when we had our Fetch the Flag event here at Snyk, and we have two fine folks that are going to help us learn more about that event, how they put it together, their inspirations behind it, and maybe even help us solve some of the challenges that folks were running into that were participating in it. So without further ado, let me introduce our two guests that are going to help us learn more about that. First up, we have Raul and
Hello.
Elliot. Hey guys, how's it going?
Great, thank you.
Yeah, hey Brian.
So happy to have you both on here. Thank you for being here. And I love the pendant behind you there, Elliot, the Fetch the Flag CTF. That's some of the swag that folks got in the event recently, right? As part of that?
Absolutely, yes.
Awesome. Cool stuff. All right. So before we get deep into things, I want to give you both a moment to introduce yourselves. So, Raul, why don't you go first, and then we'll have Elliot go next so we can learn more about you.
Thanks. So, hello everyone. My name is Raul. I'm a security researcher here at Snyk. I've been doing security research for the past almost 10 years. Started out as a C++ embedded developer. And from there, my interest in security grew and I fell in love with it. So transitioned to doing binary research and firmware analysis, exploits, those kind of stuff. And after a couple of years doing that, wanted to change a bit my areas of focus. So I started working at Snyk, and now I'm doing this high-level ecosystem open source research type of thing. So it's about me.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Elliot, you're up.
Yeah, hi there. And I'm a security researcher as well at Snyk, in the same team as Raul. And I've been at Snyk for, coming up to a year, I guess. And I mean, most of my experience has been more on the offensive side. So I had a bit of experience in the start, also as a C++ developer. But then most of my career has been in pen testing, source code review. So mostly doing thick clients, application testing, and then a tiny bit of defensive work before going over to the research side.
Awesome. Lots of background and experience from both of you. I'm glad you're on our team to have you both here. So before we get even further into things, I understand you both wanted to give a shout out to some other folks that aren't joining us here to help give their insight, but that were part of building out the whole Fetch the Flag event. So want to take a moment to do that real quick?
Sure. So three people helped us, create these challenges. They contributed a lot of these. So shout out to Lawrence Krobder and two of our former colleagues, Kirill Efimov and Aviad Chachami. Thanks, everyone. So it was a team effort, not just the two of us.
Excellent. So, and thank you for doing that. So let's start off with really briefly, in case there's folks that are joining us that aren't familiar with this type of thing. What is a CTF, a Capture the Flag event? What is that about? If you can give like a high level general overview real quick.
Sure. So basically, it's a security competition. You get a set of challenges, which each of them contains a flag, which is just a hidden string. And usually you need to exploit some vulnerability, and you need to fetch that flag, basically. Challenges vary in categories. So you have from web, crypto, pawn, reversing, and whatever the creators come up with. So this is like a good event to learn new stuff and test out your security skills.
Nice. Elliot, what, in your opinion, what do you feel? I know Raul just mentioned there, but what do you feel like is good about or the benefit of having and running a CTF event like that for folks in the community?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's just a really good way for people to be able to kind of practice their skills in a legal way, and it's also not just like a bug bounty where you may not know if you're going to find something, but you know that there is something there to be found, and it's been designed in a way that's going to be fun, and you're also going to learn something while you're doing it.
Excellent. So in that regards, so folks are excited about participating in this type of thing, but maybe they want to create one themselves. What are some of the things that they might need to get started with creating a capture the flag event? Either one of you,
So
feel free.
yeah, sorry.
I feel like you're waiting for each other to start, and
Yeah,
I'm like, go ahead,
we're new
Raul.
to this.
No worries.
Cool. So basically, you need an infrastructure, basically a platform to allow people to register and create teams and actually, access the challenges. So this is one part, and the second part is the challenges themselves. So basically, you need to create a good bulk of these, and this is what the participants are coming to do. And basically, these were the two main things that we had to invest our energy in. So luckily, this is the second year that we're doing this. So the infrastructure part is, we're getting better at it. But still, you want to be able to support, a large number of participants, and everything needs to, run smoothly and not crash. So obviously, there are performance challenges there that need to be solved. Yeah, Elliot, do you want to add maybe something?
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of covering it. I mean, you may have noticed as well. I mean, we're using an open source platform for the CTF, or for the place where you put the flags and host the challenges, which is CTFD. It's a great platform, and it made it easier for us to really just focus on making sure that the challenge infrastructure is somewhat stable and that the challenges are fun. So.
Nice. So speaking of that CTFD tool, can you dive a little bit deeper into that? What is that about? What does that do for you with creating an event like this?
Yeah, so essentially it's kind of like the main site that is the entry to the CTF. So when you go to the main website for the Fetch the Flag, where you register, where you log in, where you see the challenges, and where when you find the flag, where you can input this. This is what the CTFD platform provides.
Nice. Okay. And I was trying to do some search while you were answering that. Is it ctfd.io is the website for that?
It could
Or
be.
could be. It could be. Or is it on GitHub too? I see there's one on GitHub.
Yeah, so they offer
Yeah,
like an open source community edition, and then they have a hosted version where you can pay them, and they will make sure that the infrastructure is big enough for whichever audience you have and this kind of stuff.
Nice. Okay. So really quick, being that this is a live session, I also like to recognize folks that are popping in and tuning in live. So thank you for being here and for sending messages so far. We see Gerald over on Twitch and Frackberg. Great to see you both. And then Traces over on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in as well. I do see a question from Gerald really quick. How many people do you need to create all of the challenges? Let's start off with that question, and then there's a follow-up question after that. Raul, what would you say?
One person can do it if he has like a vast knowledge and a lot of inspiration. But yeah, a couple of people. So we had 16 challenges. It was divided between 5 people. So writing, I don't know, 3-4 challenges each makes it's a good amount, because creating challenges, it takes a while. So yeah.
Elliot, your thoughts on that? You agree?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, with the creating the challenge, it may be quite quick to actually throw the idea together, but then there'll be lots of bugs in it, and there'll be ways of solving the challenge that you weren't expecting, and things that knock it over. So a lot of the time is actually kind of making it as stable as possible, and making sure that it doesn't just completely fall over.
Gotcha. All right, and then and the follow-up question from there from Gerald is, how long does it take to create a challenge? Let's say like one single challenge. I guess it varies, right? It's like it depends. The typical answer in our industry, it depends. But on average, what would you say? How long does it take to create challenges? Raul, why don't you go first?
Between a couple of hours and, let's say, a day or two, depending. But if you're like having an idea to create a challenge in an environment or a language that you're not familiar with, then you need to invest a bit more time. That also happens from time to time. But yeah, like 1-2 days, it's reasonable.
Sure, that makes sense. Elliot, I see you nodding your head. I imagine you agree with that as well.
Yeah, so I think most of the ones that I put together were between 1 and 2 days.
Okay, cool. All right. So in terms of the Snyk CTF event that happened, what are some of the things that well, actually there's another question in chat that I wanted to get to before I jump into my further question. So Trace has asked on YouTube, where did you host the challenges? If you can share. If you can't share that type of thing, that's fine. I understand. But is there a particular place where you would host these types of challenges? Does it matter?
Yeah, so internally we hosted them in Google Cloud Platform. And like this is the info that we ran on. So you can use any cloud provider, or you can use your own custom servers if you have enough of them, and they're like powerful enough, and you paid a lot of money for them. But yeah, I would obviously recommend a cloud hosting platform for these.
I mean, one of the good things about the Google Cloud Platform that we used as well was the instance groups. So the way that we had it configured, we had multiple instances going through a load balancer, and there was health checks on each instance. So I mean, if one instance was having problems, then it would automatically fail the health check, and that specific instance would restart. And then if people were having trouble, then they would get redirected to a new instance, and it provides a lot of the capabilities for this for us.
Nice. Yeah, and that perfectly segues into my question, because you both were talking about supporting lots of participants in such an event, and going back to our event back on November 9th, we had like thousands of participants, right? I believe somewhere up there, right? Do you know the exact number by chance, or no? No. Okay, no worries. But in any case, with that many people, what are some of the things that you need to do to be able to support and scale that? It sounds like with the cloud capabilities, Google Cloud in particular, you're able to use a load balancer, but are there more specifics that maybe help support that?
Well, yeah, I mean, beside the load balancer, we had an instance group for each challenge. So basically, behind the scenes, we have a couple of instances that obviously, the load balancer divided the traffic through. If we saw that something was sluggish, then obviously we would scale that up. You can also use automated auto scaling. So if like one of the instances gets a high usage of CPU or low on memory, GCP can take care of that for you. But yeah, I mean, this was it basically.
And I think one other challenge there as well is like keeping the challenges or building them in a stateless way. So, I mean, if you have this, like the challenge is going through a load balancer and you may not necessarily be hitting the same instance every time, then building it in a stateless way could break the experience. So we're not able to, or in this case, we didn't have it where, I mean, you could upload files to an instance and like do those kinds of multi-stage attacks. So I mean, yeah, if you're going to start building challenges, going stateless is definitely easier to begin with.
Gotcha. Okay, that's super helpful, insightful. I want to remind folks that are watching this live, part of the benefit of being here live is you can ask your questions and we'll do our best to answer them. So feel free to keep posting those in the chat room as we go through today's session. My other question I was going to have is, and I think Raul, you kind of touched upon this a little bit with one of your answers earlier. Do you need to know like a deep, so you have some security background, but then do you need to have some programming background to be able to set these types of challenges up, or what is your thoughts and experience on doing that for folks that might be interested again in creating this type of event themselves?
Yeah, of course. I mean, both for creating and playing, you need to code at the end of the day. So you don't have to like be an expert, but for creating a challenge, you're obviously using some kind of framework. So if it's a web application, then you might use Express in Node.js or Flask in Python or any other one you like. And it will take you a long time to study them properly and set them up without having used them before. So definitely, and both for participating. So at the end of the day, you need to write a script, and that's code as well. It's the world we live in.
Yeah. Elliot, anything to add to that, or what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think Rao's covered that well.
Sure, no problem. All right, and I see another question in the chat. There's a moment after I take note of that one. So this is from Silent. When you go through some of the write-ups or challenges, can you share the best resources aside from Google for learning each technique used and finding when to use them? So this seems like it comes from more of a participant standpoint. If you could offer suggestions for folks that are looking to participate and learn more about being successful in an event like this, what would be your guidance and suggestions to them?
So, I mean, other than the Snyk Learn platform, I think my favorite books are The Tangled Web and the Web Application Hacker's Handbook, which are both great for building out a solid foundation. And then in terms of other platforms, Pentester Lab is one of my favorites. This is really great. And also, the Portswigger Academy. These will give you kind of some of the base foundations, and then you can then take these to platforms like Hack the Box and Try Hack Me for a more kind of CTF style approach.
Nice, sounds good. I just checked out and shared the link to pentesterlab.com in the chat as well for folks that want to check that out. Raul, do you have anything to add to that as well? What would be your guidance for folks participating?
Yeah, so I might add, you have, on GitHub all kinds of, awesome lists. So awesome CTF might be one of them. So it might contain, a ton of links and good, refers. So, yeah.
Awesome. I'm looking up the link for that really quick to share. Looks like I found one.
Hopefully it exists.
It does. It does. There is one. Awesome CTF on GitHub. A curated list of capture the flag frameworks, libraries, resources, softwares, and tutorials. This list aims to help starters as well as seasoned CTF players to find everything related to CTFs in one place. So there you go. Great suggestion, Raul. Right. I see Gerald has a question as well. And thank you everybody that's been popping questions into the chat already. Appreciate that. And if you have more, keep them coming. Gerald asks, as the people in charge of the organization of this event, how do you feel about participants sharing solutions in the chat? Is that spoiling the fun or is it helping out? What do you feel about that?
So, I mean, at the time of the event, it's obviously not too helpful. But I mean, after the event, I think it's probably quite encouraged to help people out as much as you can. And people may be really close and just need a small hint. But during the challenge, I mean, there's obviously prizes for the winner, and people are competing to try and get on that leaderboard. So there's an element there that could be unfair if people are doing this.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you don't want to. I don't know that you'd want to do that, especially when there's something on the line like that. But if it's just for fun and there aren't necessarily prizes in play, and it's more of geared around just learning, then I think it might be okay, right? Would you feel that way or no?
I think generally yes, but doing it openly in the chat may also then give people hints that they're not asking for. So they may, see the solution and not want to because they're already focusing on trying to figure it out themselves.
For sure. Fair point. Fair point. All right. Moving on to some more questions for you all. Well, so let's talk specifically about getting back to creating the Snyk CTF example. And Gerald follows up. I mean, we can't be help bragging, can we? I don't know, Gerald. Not wait until after the event, maybe, is the suggestion, is what I'm getting at of all this. Was there a particular technology stack that you all leaned on? And as part of that, I'm going to put you on the spot, both of you. Did you use Snyk to make sure it was built in a secure manner?
So, I mean, the challenges obviously are vulnerable. So
okay, yeah,
it's counter, shooting yourself in the leg there. I mean, other than CTFD that we mentioned and the Google Cloud Platform, obviously top frameworks for each challenge. So depends on if it's Python, Node.js, or that.
Gotcha. Okay. Elliot, anything to add to that, or?
Yeah, I think it just depends on okay, if I know what the type of vulnerability is that I'm trying to put as the focus of this challenge, then this could dictate also the technology used. So I mean, a couple of them, like the Juggalo Central, this was a type juggling that was based on how PHP type juggling or type coercion works. And with the serial sneaker, I mean, this was a classic Java deserialization bug. So I mean, this one you're kind of limited to Java in this case. So I mean, obviously there's deserialization in other frameworks, but in every language it works slightly differently. So I mean, in those cases, it was kind of forcing my hand. And the other challenge is, if it was just some interesting idea that I had for the challenge, then I would just use whichever framework or technology that I was most comfortable with.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So with all this in mind too, and still sticking to that thought process of like, yes, you want it to be vulnerable, but are there things that you have to put in place to make sure people don't go beyond the challenge in a lot of cases, right? If they try to break it even further, it is an event where you're inviting people to hack the systems and infrastructure you put up and spin up, right? So are there things that you need to put in place to make sure they stay within the bounds of the challenge and not go beyond that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first and foremost, you want some user isolation, right? So you don't want users interfering with each other. So I would say that this is the first thing you need to think about. And then, it depends on the vulnerability. So if you have an RCE, right, then you can just delete the flag or, do something else with the challenge that we're not intending you to do. So we need to limit privileges and these kind of stuff. So definitely, I think, it obviously depends on the challenge, but you need to put some safeguards in place for to make sure that the experience is the one that you intend, and obviously people don't mess around with the challenge.
Gotcha. Elliot, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, yeah, that's the exact main point. I mean, you don't want people deleting the flags or trying to screw with other users that are trying to solve the challenges.
Gotcha. All right, so let's get into the specifics of the challenges that were in the Snyk CTF. The two that we're going to cover today, or planning to cover today, is the Snyk environment challenge and the pay more attention challenge. So before you go and show, we get into the juicy part of today's session and going through solving those. What was some of the inspiration behind? Let's start with like the Snyk environment one. What was the inspiration behind that challenge? First, tell us what the challenge was, and then some of the inspiration that helped you come up with that challenge. And
Yeah,
I don't know which one of you created each, so let me know.
so the Snyk environment challenge. This was a Linux privilege escalation challenge, and this was there to kind of give a bit more variety. So it wasn't all, or it was a less web heavy CTF. And as with kind of all of the challenges that I wrote, there was generally some inspiration from bugs that I found or real situations that I've encountered during my career as a pen tester. So that's kind of where they came, and then how it fit together to build this challenge.
Awesome, that's cool to hear. And Raul, I imagine then you had some background and experience with the pay more attention one. Did you work on that one?
Yeah, definitely. So, the main inspiration of that was we're doing a lot of malicious package hunting in the security research team. So we're building, automated pipelines to detect these. And obviously, while we're doing that, we're seeing a lot of malicious packages. So pay more attention and the easier, the baby version, pay attention, were too inspired by, malicious packages and, obfuscations that they used and evasion techniques. So definitely our day-to-day work is a huge inspiration for that.
Yeah. So, it sounds like a lot of it is from past experience that you both have run into. Are there any potential and like what that makes me think of is like, for instance, like I'm a avid user of our Snyk open source product for my own projects, and there's, every day the Snyk vulnerability database has new open source libraries that have reports of vulnerabilities in them. So I imagine that is a lot of the source that can provide some of the challenges, right? But are there any things that are a little bit more novel that you potentially could use or have used, or was there anything like that in some of the challenges in the Snyk CTF event? And by novel, I mean, like, maybe because both of you are like, I see your response to that. But I mean, like, in the sense of, how do I want to word this? In the
So,
sense,
like, I can answer that.
Okay,
The
go
answer
ahead,
is yes. So we had the log4shell vulnerability. So one of the challenges was basically to exploit that. So I would say that, not entirely novel, but let's say current affairs, right? So
Okay.
vulnerabilities that are trending and are recent are definitely something that we use. We wouldn't want to drop any 0 days in the CTF. So, but yeah, that's as novel as we got.
Gotcha, makes sense. With that in mind as well, how do you kind of gauge? Because I imagine with the CTF event, you have the earlier on challenges a little bit more beginner friendly, let's say, and then you start scaling it up, right? If it's a true challenge where it's competition, right? You need to have those varying levels of challenges, difficulties, and challenges. So how do you kind of gauge that and figure that out when building an event like this?
It's quite hard.
Yeah.
Like some of the times, the challenges that we thought were okay, maybe this is actually a slightly harder one, or this one's easier. When we put it in the hands of participants, it's flipped around, and it makes it quite hard to judge actually how difficult the challenges are.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Did that happen with this recent event? Did you find some of the ones that you thought were going to be the harder challenges were actually easier for some folks, and some of the ones that were easier? Yeah. Which one in particular, if you could share?
I mean, for me, the Moon Goose Challenge, like I was expecting this to have a lot more solves, and the Treasure Trove and Smart Fridge Challenge, I thought these were going to be far more difficult, and they were both solved by quite a few people. So those were the most surprising ones for me.
Raul, what about you?
Agree with Elliot. Definitely. Okay. I did not expect pay more attention to not be solved. So it's a bit tricky, but still.
Yeah. All right. One last question before we get into solving those two challenges. And this is a tough challenge, a tough thing to do in our industry. But how? And this is really going to be a tough question for you too. And I know I'm really setting you up. You both are probably sweating right now. Like, what is Brian going to ask me? How did you come up with the names of the challenges? Naming is hard. So they're all unique and interesting. So how did you come up with the names? I'm joking around, obviously. In terms of
string random flag generator or challenge generator. Yeah, kidding.
random name generator. That's what you did?
Silly names. Yeah, I mean, come on. Some of them are, related to the challenge, but yeah, it's just our silly way to have fun.
Okay, fair enough. Elliot, did you have any thoughts on that? No, you just
no, but I mean, a couple of them. I think the name came to me first, and I was like, "Oh, that could be a fun name," and then I built a challenge out of it.
Nice. Okay, cool. All right, so a couple catching up on some of the chat messages here. We got Vega who's asking, "Are you going to host another CTF anytime soon?" I imagine yes, right? We don't have anyone. Do we have another one currently planned that you know of that you're working on?
Not that I know of, but hopefully next year we'll have another Fetch the Flag.
Yep. So you can count on that. We also do it's not a CTF, but we have the Big Fix event that we're putting on for next year, which is a challenge to see how many vulnerabilities you can find and fix, and you get points for the fixes that you do complete as part of your projects, and there will be prizes and stuff like that. So keep an eye out for that event coming up early 2023. Thank you for the question, Vega. And then I just see a comment from David over on YouTube. Next time for the container challenge, there should be a way to not pull the Docker image and get inside it locally looking for the flag. So just, I guess, some feedback. There you go for some of that stuff going on there. Okay, cool. All right, let's get into which one of you wants to go first in terms of demonstrating solving the challenge.
Elliot.
You got voluntold, Elliot.
Yeah, let me just prepare my screen.
Sure, no problem.
Cool. So yeah, let me know when you can see the screen, and I will get going.
All right, we got your screen, and it's up, ready to go.
Amazing.
So this
So
is for the Snyk environment challenge, right?
yes, exactly. And then we have the fetch 22 domain. So I mean, this is actually where you can go ahead and solve the challenges yourself. These are still up. And for this one here, we have the Snyk environment. This now looks slightly different from when it did on the main day of the event, as we were hosting this challenge. But for this one, because it's SSH based, we've provided a Docker image and instructions on how to run this locally. So if you want to go ahead and do this locally, you'll need to just follow these instructions. But other than this, it's the exact same Docker image that was used on the day. So over here, I already have the Docker image imported, and I have logged in. So I mean here, ID, I am the challenge user, which is the one that we get here, and I'm SSH'd into localhost. So
Hey, Elliot, really quick, on the terminal at least, could you potentially zoom in a little bit for folks that might? There we go. Perfect.
is
Great.
that better?
Yeah.
Cool. If you need it any bigger, just let me know.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean we're on this box, and I mean how do we approach privilege escalation on a Linux machine? So I mean there's a few tools and places that we can look. So I mean one first good thing is just like what users do we have on the platform? Maybe this could give us some sort of insight. And at the bottom here, I mean we have a Snyk user, we have a challenge user, and then I mean traditionally sometimes the flags may be located at locations just like on the root. Does that exist? So yeah, we can see there that we know the location of the flag without looking too hard in this case, and we can try to read it, but based on the permissions that are there, it looks like it won't work. So yeah, we can't do that, and we see that it's because it's owned by root, but we can see that under the group it's under the Snyk user. So maybe we need to get access to the Snyk account, and then this has read permissions over this flag. So I mean, there's a lot of things that we could check to try to figure out how to do a Privesc on this machine. But there's also some really good tools that can help automate this process for us. So there's one quite useful tool called linpeas. And if we go to GitHub, we can see the script here. If you want to get this script to try and run it, we can go to the releases. We see linpeas.sh. We can copy the link as, and then we can go down to here and wget the link, and then we can download this. We can make this executable, and then we can go ahead and run this, and this will go ahead and basically perform a lot of the checks for Linux privilege escalation that you can do, and it will give us a list of things that we can go through and check to see, okay, could there be something here? And there are also a lot of guides. So I mean, if you just Google Linux Privesc, I mean, you'll see a lot of different things and resources for this. This is one of the old classic ones that's still very relevant from Got Milk, and the Hacktricks one is also very good. But this is quite time consuming. So I mean, while you're doing it in the CTF, I mean, this of course will give you potentially the answer or give you some leads that will get you to the flag. But if you're up against the clock and you want to be one of the first to get this flag, it may be a bit harder. So this is why we have some useful scripts that will go ahead and do all of this for us. So if we go up and have a look at just some of the output.
And really quick, while you're scrolling through that, Elliot, so it seems like, and again, I like to try and break things down a little bit more for beginners as best as possible. So you saying Privesc, it's short for privilege escalation, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And
So
that's giving you more access than you're supposed to have to a certain device, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, with privilege escalation, we typically have two forms. We have like vertical and horizontal. And in a horizontal privilege escalation, I mean, you're typically gaining access to, like, maybe not the root user, but you're gaining access to someone, a different context or user that has maybe the same level of access, but access to different data. So it could be a regular going from the challenge account to the Snyk account in this case, and then a vertical privilege escalation would be then going or escalating to the root account. So
Nice.
in this case, I mean, it's probably enough for us to be able to just get into that Snyk account instead of the root account, given the permissions of that flag file.
Gotcha. And the other thing I'm picking up on here, and we talked about earlier, some of the skills that you'd like that folks could that would be helpful for folks to have when participate in this type of thing. We talked about having some coding and development background, but it looks like also having just, script bash and terminal experience and just like system administration type of experience, knowing what the different commands are, it would
Yeah, I
be
mean,
super helpful for people too, right?
so knowing your way around the command line is certainly helpful, and also just having a basic, like, kind of working knowledge of the common operating systems. So, I mean, typically Windows and Linux. If you have a good working knowledge of, okay, these systems and how to interact with them, then this is going to be a good baseline.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
And then, yeah, I mean, we can already see from looking through some of the results here. I mean, we've got a couple of things to note. So there's two CVEs here that we're potentially vulnerable to. We could go ahead and try to run the exploits for these right away, but let's continue going through and maybe it will give us some other things that we can look at. So again, there's a couple of other CVEs here that are potentially going to help us. Container breakout, so it gives you just a lot of information, like, are you running in a container? Like, yes, we're in Docker, and just general runtime information that's just typically quite useful to know when you're building out what you're looking at. Even we can even see that we're running inside the Google Cloud Platform, which is quite useful. Going down,
Access tokens and SSH keys, that seems dangerous.
yeah, I mean, these are only scoped to basically what the container can access, and it can't access anything. So, I mean, it's not
Okay.
really going to be able to be useful here. But in a real CTF, if you do see access tokens, then yeah, I mean, looking at these is certainly going to be important. And then, yeah, once we get down here, we start to see a few more things, users and groups. And yeah, one of the common ways for privilege escalations on these on like CTFs are SUID and GUID binaries. And SUID ones, I mean, we don't see any SUID binaries here that are potentially like what ones that are unknown, but we do see one down here which is called Flagger, which is the German word for flag. So and we see that this is also owned, or the group is of the Snyk user. So this could be potentially interesting for us to look at. So if we just have a look and run this, we see, okay, fortune, print a random fortune. We see a couple of things that this can do. So it's obviously some binary that's there specifically for this challenge. And if we run the first fortune, it's told us that strace is doing the right thing, even if nobody is watching. So it's given us a bit of a hint here on how we could potentially solve this. So for anyone that doesn't know, strace is basically system trace. It allows you to see system calls that are made by an application. So we could go ahead and run strace against the not that one. And go reverse, and then hello. Let's pipe this to an output. This two Triangular bracket, this is because strace will print a standard out. So we're just going to read standard error, and this will just redirect standard error to a text file so we can easily grep this later on. And okay, this one here, it's given us what looks like a flag. A few people, we saw that many people tried to enter this, but this was a dummy flag. It wouldn't actually give you access to anything real. But if we then have a look at the out file, and then maybe look to see, does this open anything or anything like that? So we can see by basically grepping for open syscalls, we can see that, okay, there's just some shared objects that have been loaded, but it's not accessed any files with this specific function. So let's rerun this again with the other function that we have. So user info, and then why not look at Snyk? So sorry, it returns the UID of the given user. So let's do that. We know then the UID, and then let's do the same for this. And in here we can see a lot more things that the operating system is opening during that execution. So we see things that we expect, like the various shared libraries. We see some Python. So this is maybe giving us a hint. This is invoking some Python in the background. That could be interesting to look at. And we also see this Etsy ping2. This is kind of strange. It sticks out quite a bit from the rest. So I mean, we can have a look at this. Who owns it? So it's owned by root. We don't have write permissions to it, so we can't potentially open this. But like, I mean, first of all, is it a binary or okay? So it's just text, so we can then cat this. And it looks like it's a Python script. So this is probably the Python script that's actually being executed by this Python implementation here. And we can see here that it's saying, okay, os environment.get, and it's looking for this environment variable. And if this is there, then it's basically taking the contents of that and trying to open and exec this. So we can already use this to our advantage. So then we can go local file. We can point this to our flag, and then just run the flag program, and it should spit out the flag if we have done this correctly. And we can see there that then this is returned the contents of that real flag. So then basically by looking to see, okay, are there any particularly dangerous file permissions on certain files on the system? We've been able to locate this binary, and then by using strace on the binary to see, okay, what files are being interacted with, we've able to then locate a file that is loaded, and this file is basically taking an environment variable in an insecure way that allows this basically arbitrary Python code to be injected. And in this case, we didn't need to do that because Python will spit out an error for us. So we were able to just give it the flag file. But if this wasn't the case, we could have also given this locale file to an actual Python script. And then this would have also execed the contents of that file and then printed it. So there's a couple of ways there that we could have solved this.
Nice, that's cool, and it's interesting to see that there's many avenues people can take with that. The other thing I was picking up on while you're going through all this, and then going back to what I was saying before in terms of like beginner friendly, what skills you need. So we talked about having some coding, some operating system understanding, and commands to use within those operating systems. But then I'm also seeing here that it'd be helpful maybe to be multilingual, so you know a little German, so you know that flag term. Um, and then leet speak too. There was some leet speak in there that I saw that gave the hint that it was not the actual flag in that one that you had earlier. So I was like, that was pretty
this
clever.
is just a little bit of a troll, really, but
Yeah. Awesome stuff. But thank you for going through that, Elliot. And hopefully, if any folks have questions in the chat, feel free to drop those there, and we'll do our best to answer them. All right. So, anything else to add in regards to this particular challenge, Elliot?
yeah, nope. I think we'll hand over to Raul and let's learn more about the pay more attention.
Excellent. Sounds good. Raul, go ahead and get your screen ready. And for folks that while Raul's going through that, if you're interested in checking out more of the Snyk CTF events and the past one, and you want to see the solutions to some of the other challenges, or maybe get started working through them yourself before looking at the results, you can go to snyk.io/CTF. I'm dropping the link in the chat right now. I'm going to put it on the screen as well, so you can go check it out and learn more about it and get some experience yourself. All right, Raul, you ready?
Yep.
All right. Go ahead.
Cool. So if you click on the Pay More Attention challenge, you get this, and you can download a pay.pyc file, which is a Python compiled bytecode. So we'll download, and let's go to the terminal. Is it big enough?
Can you zoom in a couple times there? Maybe one or two more.
Is it
That's
okay
pretty
now?
good. Yeah, that should be good. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Let's do it a bit more. Cool. So usually when you get a compiled bytecode file, you would use the uncompiled 6 package to try to decompile it and get your Python source code out of it. So if we will run it, that's that it was successful in doing so. And let's take a look in the source code. So I've got everything prepared, and this is what you get. So basically, you get a bit of comments here telling you that the bytecode is Python 3.8, and let's look at the code. So we see this import right from PyTransform. We import this runtime, and then it will execute whatever this is, and this is important. And we see a huge blob of unknown stuff. So PyArmor basically is a package used to obfuscate Python code. So our code that actually will be running if you would install this is hidden behind this obfuscation. So we need to find a way to defeat this. And this can get pretty tricky. So one thing you might do is, for instance, let's run this with a debugger and try to dynamically see if we can look at stuff. So if I'll do this, we're here at the first instruction. So let's click next, and we see that we cannot find the PyTransform module. So we're missing something in order to execute this script. If we look at the Python, at the PyArmor, documentation, then we see that if we're running PyArmor obfuscate on a script, it will create this PyTransform directory and a shared object, DLL, depending on which platform you're running. So we are obviously missing this. One way to get around this is let's create a test file, and I've created one here. A simple script. Let's run a PyArmor obfuscate on it, and it should create what we need. So if I'll do this, okay, so we get a lot of printouts, and it eventually says that it was able to obfuscate the scripts. And if we go into this, we see that it indeed created this PyTransform directory with everything you need inside it. So if I will try to run now the debugger, oh, sorry. Oh, well, it's doing something weird. I think that it got past the loading. So if I'll just, something is not right, of course this will happen. Let's try to do this.
It's the nature of doing things live, you know?
Yeah, definitely. It always happens. Nope, I'll give it one more try, and if not, we'll just skip this. This will not get you to solve the challenge anyway. But anyhow, let's try something else. So the debugger will not work, right? You get that to that PyArmor executable. It will try to execute that function on the large blob, and nothing will happen. So you cannot see what actually gets running. One other thing that you might try to do is use another popular package, which is called inspect. So let's do this. Inspect is meant to inspect live objects within the Python interpreter. So we can see the attributes, the methods, a lot of metadata regarding a module. So you have another one which is called rich, which is like a fancy, colorful wrapper for inspect. So let's use that. We'll import it and import. Wow,
And that's just that's just part of the standard library for Python, those two packages?
Inspect is rich. You need to run pip install for it. For some really weird reason, none of this is working. But if you will run that, you will also not be able to solve the challenge with it. So basically, you will see that you are not able to access the module attributes. And the reason is that we used a harder mode for PyArmor, which basically prevents you to look at the module attributes without running within an obfuscated script. So you can find this in the modes of operation. And when we obfuscated our script, we used restrict mode 3. So this is an enhancement that protects module attributes. So basically, you cannot access anything. So just a small comment, in the easier challenge, pay attention, you could use the debugger to solve it. So basically, we turned the difficulty up a notch and made this a little bit harder to solve. So what do? Basically, you need to go deep into the interpreter. PyArmor will decrypt this encrypted blob during runtime. So eventually, there will be Python code that is running. So we need some way to access this. And the way to do that is actually download the source code of the interpreter and modify the function that actually executes the Python code frames.
Ooh.
So if we go to the Python distribution, we saw that uncompile6 gave us the hint of which bytecode was running. So we can download the source code of the interpreter from here. And after you do that, you need to go into this ceval file. And within there, you have this method. So this will get executed anytime you run a Python frame object. So the frame object is basically the wrapper for a code object that will contain the bytecode and the attributes and strings and everything that needs for that Python code to run. So basically, we want to tap into this and print out whatever is running. So in order to do that, we need to import a Marshall library. And if we go back to the code, the snippet that we saw, basically we need to find a good injection point, and this is it. So here we get the code object initialized from the frame object, right? So we have this copied into it, and we see it has a lot of cool, interesting properties, such as names and constants and local variables and a bunch more. And we want to dump these each time they get executed. So we injected a pretty trivial piece of code here, right? We create a dump file under the temp directory, and we will write each code object to it. And this will get executed anytime we run the interpreter. So after we compile the interpreter, we can use it to execute the code. And if we do that, so yeah, this I have it pre-compiled. And if I'm doing it, well, again, weird, nothing is working. Awesome.
The challenge is challenging you now.
yeah. And I tested this before going live, so this is super weird. Let me try do something else. Complete brain meltdown. This will not run, and no. So for some weird reason, it's not working, obviously, but I've run this before. So if you look at, okay, so we have that file. If we examine it, it's just a huge data blob. And we can maybe tap into it just to, see a bit what it looks like. A lot of binary, and we see some strings running around here. So for instance, let's run the strings binary on it, and let's grep for flag. Let's see what happens. We have some weird printouts, but there's supposed to be another string here, never mind. So if we're running, so if we try to grep for the flag, it's in there. Basically, our binary has that, as a raw string in it, and we used, PyArmor to obfuscate the script, and basically you can just do a simple grep and you will get it. So we didn't want to complicate things anymore by hiding it better. This is hard enough. So basically, this is one challenge that we had. We saw a malicious package that used PyArmor for obfuscating its code, and we needed to go through all of this for us to be able to make sense of what is happening there. And we thought it might be a good experience to share with other people. So that's about it.
Awesome, Raul. So
sorry about things not working.
Yeah, no worries about that. That happens, but you talking through it was still helpful to understand the flow of it, and even though it wasn't working quite for you as you were expecting. And you know what's going to happen? As soon as we get off this call and you try again, it's going to work perfectly. That's just the way things go. So,
yeah.
But what's super interesting in that particular challenge was it was a couple different languages, right? So you had Python and C, and learning about that and understanding how that flows. And to me, I mean, I'm a newbie still to these CTF things, but that looked super challenging to me. But this is one of the ones where you thought it was going to be challenging, and quite a lot of people solved it, right?
Nobody.
Oh, nobody solved that one. Okay.
Nobody solved this one.
Okay, yeah. I thought this was one of the ones. We
thought this might be a bit hard because going patching the interpreter C codes. It's not trivial.
Yeah.
But I've seen this when I looked at defeating PyArmor, Googled it up, and I saw people doing that. So.
Yeah. Wow, super interesting. Well, I see we're at time. Do you have any closing thoughts, either one of you, on this? Like some guidance or thoughts that you want to give to people either participating in CTFs or creating CTFs?
Yeah, get involved. Get your hands dirty. It's fun, and you get to learn tons.
Elliot, any closing words from you?
Yeah, no, just have fun, participate in CTFs, and have a go at building one.
Excellent. Well, thank you both so much. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to take you off stage, but thank you both so much for your time and talking about this stuff. Super interesting things. I learned a lot. Like for one, the terminal, I saw both of you use that terminal command that I didn't know of, just file and then the name of the file to see what file type it is. So that's super interesting, among other things. But that was just one small little tidbit I wanted to share that I learned with you all. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, Raul and Elliot. All right, folks, that does it for this live stream. Thank you for tuning in. If you tuned in live and asked questions in the chat room, really appreciate it. If you're watching this recording later on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. to help grow the channel and show that you like this type of content, and you'll see more from us on the channel. And if you're on Twitch, thanks over there for following and doing that type of thing. Hope you enjoyed the stream. We're going to have more of this stuff. So be sure to follow along, subscribe so you get that in your feed. We'll see you next time. If you want to learn more about, and again, a reminder, the CTFs, you can check out the link snyk.io/CTF. It's in the chat and it will be in the video description below. Hope you have a good rest of your day wherever you're in the world. So long. Have a good one. Bye-bye now. Run it. Run the end screen.